Yesterday's question of the day was my question to you guys, and that was to ask me as many questions as you can think of that I can answer for you in rapid fire style. So here we go. I have a bunch of questions. First one, what's the difference between D-Lighting and TTL? Well, D-Lighting and TTL aren't really related. I explained D-Lighting in this video. As for TTL, it's really how the camera meters, but these days it's how the camera meters when you're using flash. TTL means through the lens. Do you use your D3100 battery grip? Yes. Can you convert RAW files to JPEG? Yes. It's pretty safe to say that if you have photo editing software that will open the RAW files, it can also convert them to JPEG if you ask it to. Is there a drastic difference in picture quality between a macro lens and the lens cap deal that screws onto a non-macro lens? Yes. Try extension tubes instead. If you were to recommend one slave flash for a point-and-shoot camera, what would it be? Well, really, just go with one that is the same brand as your camera. That way, if your point-and-shoot has a hot shoe, you'll be able to use the flash on the camera as well as off. I happen to like things that do double duty. What about for a Nikon DSLR? Go with any of the speed lights that support the Nikon Creative Lighting System. That is the SB 600, 700, 800, 900, and 910. And the SB 700 through 910 will also do SU4 mode, which means that you can use them as slaves without using the Nikon Creative Lighting System. I'm looking for my first lens to complement the kit lens that came with my camera, which was the 18-55. Which should I get first? Well, I suggest either one of two things. Either get a prime like the 35mm f1.8 or the 50mm f1.8 so that you can have some low light capabilities, or go for something that'll give you some more reach like the 55-200. Why do you hate Canon? I don't hate Canon. I have a G7 point and shoot and I have a HG10 video camera. Marry me. That's not a question, and no. Is it easy to get a job as a photographer with cheap equipment? Well, it's probably just as easy to get a job with expensive equipment, or just as hard, rather. If you have good sales and marketing and you've got a good portfolio, it's probably the same as if you have expensive equipment. It really doesn't matter what you have. Is it worth it to use a light meter, given that modern DSLR metering is so good? Well, the time to use a light meter would be when you're using strobes in your studio, because your camera can't meter the strobes, but a light meter could. Do you ever use one? No, but I'm probably going to get one, because when I'm providing lighting information to my VIPs, I give them like strobe outputs and measurement and stuff, but it would be more accurate for me to give them metering information. You look like someone I know. Do you have a family member in the Marines? No, but I get that a lot. Everyone's always telling me that I look like somebody they know. What is your favorite sport and how do you stay in shape? Well, my favorite sports are pretty much how I stay in shape. I like running and cycling and swimming and hiking and karate and anything that keeps me moving. How far do you go to pursue particular photo ops? Well, I went to Chicago a few weeks ago, largely in part just to take photos. And I go on some pretty massive hikes to take photos, but I would pretty much say that everything I do is an adventure and I enjoy the whole time, so it's not really just to take photos. Why can't I upload RAW files? Well, there's a couple of reasons. RAW files are just too big for uploading to things like social media sites, and also RAW files are different from brand to brand, camera brand to camera brand. If you want to shoot and edit in RAW, just convert the final image to JPEG, and that one you'll be able to upload. Is there anything I can do to boost my creativity? Well, there's lots of things you can do to boost your creativity. You can go to a museum or take an art class or do anything different than what you normally do regarding photography. Just experiment. I did actually answer this question for a similar question anyway, for someone who was kind of in a slump. So take a look at this video. Which is the best, JPEG or RAW? Well, that's a loaded question. Basically, just learn the differences and find out what's best for you. If you want to spend a lot of time editing at the computer, shoot RAW. But if you don't want to spend a lot of time at the computer, just go ahead and shoot JPEG. What is your favorite DSLR? That's like choosing my favorite child, but you know, they all have their place. But here's a bunch of them here. What's your advice on working with new models to relax them and make them feel comfortable trying new things and being less serious while remaining professional as a photographer? Alcohol. I could barely say that with a straight face. Don't do that. Really, I did a video on this topic for Linco. Here's a link to that video. Can you compare the Nikon 35mm f1.8 and the 50mm f1.8? I did, and here's the link. Next. Even when I have the perfect setup with the camera, lens, and exposure, my photos often don't turn out. What do I do? Well, knowing the technical side of photography is important, and you know, it's probably half the battle. But if you're looking for more, you know, take an art class or go to a museum. You know, if you take an art class, it would be great because you can learn to point out what you like and what you don't like, and you'll be able to define what it is you like and don't like, and you'll be able to experiment and learn how to apply that in your photography. I want to upgrade from my D90. Which camera do I buy? I say keep the D90. It's a great camera. Just spend the money on a lens or two. What is your favorite snack? I love food. I particularly love snacking, but probably my all-time favorite snack would be Oreos and milk. Did you look up to any photographers, or did you have a mentor as you were learning photography? Well, I look at photography as an art form. I don't really differentiate between photographers and painters and sculptors. I've always just been really interested in how different artists portray light. And for me, one of my favorite artists is Caravaggio, and he was a master painter at just showing light. Why don't you ever use film? Actually, every couple of years I get a wild hair and I go through a roll of film. So I thought today, I would take a picture of you guys. Let's see, why don't you ever, I already did that. Who are your favorite photographers? Well, all of you guys, of course. Why did you choose Nikon? I simply, you know, I just liked the way Nikon felt in my hands, and I liked how I could move through the menus. But everybody's preference is different. High key versus low key. I like them both. What if SnapChick was not a photographer? I'd probably be a ballerina, or maybe a rock star. What do you have degrees in? I have a bachelor's in art history, and I have a master's in business. What do you do for backing up your photos? Oh, I answered that in a video. The link is here. Filters on your lens versus filters on your software. Well, it depends. There are some filters for your lens, like polarizers, that actually change the way the light gets into your camera, so you can't really do that with software. So in that case, you know, I want the filter on the camera. But as for the other types of filters, it depends on my mood, whether I want to bring it along to put it on my camera or whether I just want to pack light and just do it later in the post-processing. I want to know what you think about the Nikon 24mm f2.8. Well, it sounds like a winner, but I haven't used it. Can you come to Chile to take pics? Someday. What else interests you beside photography? Well, really, the more appropriate question would be, what doesn't interest me? What was the first camera that you owned or used? I had a neon yellow camera that took 110 film, and I loved that thing when I was a kid. How big does the diamond on the engagement ring have to be before I can propose? Well, you know what? Everybody has diamonds. I would prefer something a little bit different. What is the minimum amount of equipment you need in order to do a full professional photo shoot? 2 cameras and 2 lenses, because you always need a backup because something is going to break. Do you use Lightroom or Aperture? I use Aperture 3. Who's your favorite Disney character and why? I watched Cinderella so many times when I was a young girl that I could probably still recite the lines. But now as a grown-up, I keep thinking, why doesn't Cinderella get off her bum and go to school? I mean, What happens when Prince Charming dies? Does she even know how to like write a check? Anyway, get a job, lady. What is the best photography you have been able to pull off with do-it-yourself or off-the-shelf materials? Ooh, I'm pretty proud of my cardboard, printer paper, and bungee cord reflectors that I made for my SV800s. I use them to blow out white backdrops in the studio. I also like my hardware store work lamps sometimes when I am in the studio. Here's a link to one of my videos where I talk about some of that kind of stuff. And the last one. Would you like to go on a photo date? And the answer to that is yes. On my last date with you guys, I admit I passed out in the end. Here's a link to that. But for this one, the idea is that I would take you guys on a date just through photos. I would take photos wherever I go. And I'm totally digging the idea, and I'm planning an upcoming photo shoot with it. So that's it. That's all the questions that I have. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.